For 8 years, I spent every spare moment scrolling through social media. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Reddit. An endless cycle of consumption. Refresh, scroll, like, comment, repeat. I thought I was staying connected, staying informed, being part of something. But really, I was numbing myself. Avoiding. Escaping. Using social media the way some people use alcohol or drugs. When I finally quit, I expected to feel better immediately. Lighter. Free. More present. Instead, I felt everything. And I mean everything. All the pain, all the emotions, all the reality I'd been numbing for years came crashing down at once. No one warned me what healing actually feels like. How brutal it is. How raw. How it breaks you open before it puts you back together. This is what really happens when you stop numbing yourself with social media. And it's nothing like I expected. I didn't realize I was numbing myself until I stopped. Every uncomfortable emotion I'd scroll. Anxious? Scroll. Sad? Scroll. Angry? Scroll. Bored? Scroll. Even happy, I'd scroll to share it, validate it, make it real. I'd wake up feeling heavy with dread about the day ahead. Instead of sitting with that feeling, understanding it, I'd immediately open Instagram. 30 minutes later, I'd have successfully avoided the feeling but still carried it around all day. I'd have a difficult conversation with someone I loved. Feel the discomfort of conflict, of vulnerability. And within minutes, I'd be on my phone, soothing myself with strangers' content, numbing the rawness of real human connection. I'd face a challenge at work. Feel inadequate, overwhelmed. Instead of processing those feelings, I'd disappear into Twitter, reading other people's thoughts, drowning my own in a sea of noise. Social media was my emotional anesthetic. And I didn't even know I was using it that way. The decision to quit came during a panic attack. I was scrolling through Instagram, as usual, comparing my life to highlight reels. Feeling worse with each swipe. Heart racing. Chest tight. Breath shallow. And suddenly I had this clarity. I was doing this to myself. Every day. Multiple times a day. Voluntarily ingesting poison and wondering why I felt sick. I deleted every social media app. Right then. In the middle of the panic attack. Before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't deactivate my accounts. Didn't make an announcement. Didn't do it gradually. Just deleted the apps and sat there, phone in hand, panic still coursing through me. That was the last moment of numbing. Everything after that was feeling. The first day without social media, I felt like I'd been skinned alive. Every nerve was exposed. Every emotion was amplified. Every sensation was overwhelming. I felt anxious. Not just regular anxiety. Crushing, suffocating anxiety that made my chest hurt and my hands shake. I felt sad. Deep, heavy sadness that sat on my chest like a weight. Sadness I couldn't name or explain. Just there. Unavoidable. I felt angry. At myself. At the world. At the years I'd wasted. At the fact that this was so hard. I felt lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. Even though I'd felt lonely while using social media, this was different. This loneliness had teeth. And I couldn't numb any of it. Couldn't scroll it away. Had to just sit there and feel all of it. Raw and unfiltered and overwhelming. This was healing? This felt like dying. The emotions weren't just mental. They were physical. Visceral. Inescapable. The anxiety lived in my chest. Tight. Constricted. Sometimes sharp pains that made me think I was having a heart attack. The sadness lived in my throat. A lump I couldn't swallow. Tears that threatened constantly but wouldn't fully come. The anger lived in my jaw. Clenched so tight I got headaches. Ground my teeth at night until my dentist asked what was wrong. The loneliness lived in my stomach. Empty. Hollow. An ache that no amount of food could fill. I hadn't realized how much I'd been living in my head. Disconnected from my body. using social media to float above physical reality. Now I was back in my body. And my body was screaming at me. Years of unfelt emotions demanding to be felt. All at once. Without social media to distract me, memories started surfacing. Memories I'd buried. Avoided. Numbed. Moments from childhood. Painful ones. Shameful ones. Ones I'd pushed down so deep I'd convinced myself they didn't affect me. Relationships that ended badly. Things I'd said or done. Ways I'd been hurt. Ways I'd hurt others. All of it came flooding back. Failures I'd never processed. Dreams I'd abandoned. Versions of myself I'd left behind without grieving. These memories weren't just mental images. They came with full emotional weight. I'd feel them as intensely as when they first happened. Sometimes more intensely, because now I had years of perspective and maturity to understand them. Social media had been my way of never sitting still long enough for these memories to catch me. Now they'd caught me. And they demanded to be felt. Acknowledged. Processed. With all this emotion surfacing, shame wasn't far behind. Shame for wasting 8 years scrolling. For all the hours I'd never get back. For choosing pixels over presence. Shame for the relationships I'd neglected. The conversations I'd been half present for. The moments I'd documented instead of experienced. Shame for my envy. For all the times I'd looked at others' lives and felt inferior. For letting strangers' curated content make me hate my own life. Shame for my vanity. For caring so much about likes and comments and followers. For measuring my worth in digital validation. Shame for my addiction. For not being strong enough to just use it in moderation. For needing to quit completely. This shame was suffocating. It made me want to hide. To disappear. To numb myself again with anything available. But I couldn't. I had to sit with it. Let it wash over me. Feel every wave of it until it finally subsided. Around day 5, I started grieving. Proper grieving. For years of my life I'd given to social media. I calculated once. 8 years. Average of 4 hours a day. That's over 11,000 hours. Nearly 500 days. Over a year of my life spent scrolling. What could I have done with that time? What could I have learned? Created? Experienced? Who could I have become? The grief was overwhelming. I'd mourned deaths before. But this was different. This was mourning a life I could have lived but didn't. Mourning versions of myself that never got to exist because I was too busy scrolling. I cried. Real crying. The kind that shakes your whole body. The kind that leaves you exhausted and hollow. Social media had numbed this grief for years. Distracted me from considering the cost. Now the bill was due. And it was steep. After grief came anger. White-hot, burning anger. At myself. For being weak. For falling into the trap. For staying in it for so long. At the platforms. For being designed to addict me. For profiting from my attention. For selling my data while destroying my mental health. At society. For normalizing this. For making it weird to not be on social media. For building a world where you're expected to be constantly connected and performative. At everyone who said it was harmless. That it was just how things are now. That I was overreacting to call it an addiction. This anger was intense. Sometimes I'd rage. Yell at nothing. Punch pillows. Feel the fury coursing through me like electricity. Social media had dampened this anger. Diverted it into endless debates and arguments with strangers. Into performative outrage that led nowhere. Now it was pure. Undiluted. Mine to feel and process, and eventually release. By week 2, the loneliness had become the dominant feeling. I'd lost my constant companions. The endless stream of people and content and connection. Even if it was shallow, it was something. Now I had nothing. I'd reach for my phone to share something funny. Remember, I couldn't. The thought would just die. Unshared. Alone. I'd experienced something beautiful. Want to photograph it, post it, have people validate the experience. Couldn't. Had to just experience it alone. Which somehow felt like it didn't fully happen. I'd have a thought. A realization. An opinion. Used to immediately tweet it. Now it just stayed in my head. Unheard. Maybe mattering. Maybe not. The silence was deafening. The isolation was suffocating. I'd numbed myself to loneliness by surrounding myself with digital noise. Now, in actual silence, the loneliness was unbearable. This was part of healing. Feeling the true extent of my isolation so I could eventually do something real about it. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. Without social media, I didn't know who I was. For 8 years, I'd performed my identity online. Curated it. Edited it. Presented a version of myself for public consumption. That version was confident. Funny. Informed. Connected. Interesting. Everything I wanted to be but wasn't. Without that platform, who was I? The real me was anxious. Often sad. Uncertain. Alone. Unremarkable. I'd built an entire identity around my online presence. The clever tweets. The aesthetic Instagram. The thoughtful comments. The carefully crafted persona. None of that was real. And now I had to figure out who I actually was underneath all that performance. It was terrifying. Like losing myself. Except I was losing a false self to find the real one. And the real one wasn't impressive or interesting or worth following. The real one was just human. Flawed and struggling and ordinary. And I had to learn to be okay with that. One of the worst parts of quitting social media was comparison withdrawal. For years, I'd compared myself to others constantly. Their lives, their achievements, their looks, their relationships. It was torture, but it was also my baseline. My way of understanding where I stood. Without that constant comparison, I didn't know how I was doing. Was my life good? Bad? Average? I had no reference point. At first, this felt like freedom. No more measuring myself against impossible standards. No more feeling inadequate every time I opened an app. But it also felt like floating in space. No gravity. No orientation. No way to know if I was moving forward or backward or just drifting. I realized I'd outsourced my sense of self-worth to social media metrics. Likes determined if I was funny. Followers determined if I was interesting. Comments determined if I was valued. Without those metrics, I had to build internal validation. Judge myself by my own standards. And I had no idea how to do that. The fear of missing out, which social media had created, somehow got worse when I quit. I was missing everything. Every trend. Every conversation. Every drama. Every meme. Every cultural moment. Friends would reference something everyone was talking about online. I'd have no idea what they meant. Feel left out. Behind. Disconnected. The world kept moving without me. And I wasn't there to witness it. Wasn't there to participate. Wasn't there to have an opinion or add my voice. This FOMO was excruciating. Made me question my decision daily. Made me want to download the apps again just to catch up. To not be left behind. But slowly, I realized something. I wasn't missing anything important. Trends came and went. Drama resolved itself. Memes became irrelevant within days. The FOMO was manufactured. Created by platforms to keep me engaged. There was nothing to actually miss. Just an endless stream of noise that didn't matter. Understanding this intellectually didn't stop the feeling. But it helped. Slowly, the FOMO loosened its grip. Without social media filling every gap, boredom became my constant companion. Waiting in line. Bored. Sitting on the bus. Bored. Between tasks. Bored. Before bed. Bored. First thing in the morning. Bored. Every moment that used to be filled with scrolling was now just empty space. And I didn't know what to do with it. The boredom was physically uncomfortable. Made me restless. Anxious. Desperate for stimulation, I'd pace, fidget, clean things, organize, anything to fill the void. But nothing provided the instant gratification of scrolling. This boredom forced me to confront something uncomfortable. I'd forgotten how to just be, to exist without constant stimulation, to sit with myself without distraction. Social media had trained my brain to need constant novelty, constant input, constant stimulation. Now my brain was throwing a tantrum, demanding its fix. Learning to sit with boredom without reaching for a digital pacifier was one of the hardest parts of healing. Around week 3, something shifted. Physically, I started sleeping better. Without the blue light before bed. Without the anxiety of scrolling through bad news. Without comparing my life to others right before trying to sleep. My eyes stopped hurting. I hadn't realized they'd been hurting. The constant strain from staring at a screen. The dryness. The fatigue. It all eased. My posture improved. I'd been hunched over my phone for years. Neck bent. Shoulders curved. Now I stood straighter without even trying. My hands stopped cramping. The repetitive motion of scrolling had created tension I'd normalized. Now it released. These physical improvements were subtle but real. My body was healing from years of abuse I hadn't acknowledged. And with physical healing came small amounts of mental clarity. Just glimpses at first. But enough to see that something was changing. That I was changing.
Hey, if this is resonating with you, I need your help. Hit that like button and subscribe. But more importantly, leave a comment. Share your experience. Share your healing. Share some hope. Your words matter more than you know.
By week 4, the emotional intensity started to settle. Not disappear, but become manageable. The anxiety was still there but less overwhelming. I could breathe through it. Function despite it. The sadness came in waves instead of being constant. I could feel it, let it pass, and have moments of lightness between. The anger softened into something more like grief. A sadness for what was lost but not rage about it. The loneliness remained but changed quality. It became less about missing social media and more about needing real connection. I was learning to feel emotions without being consumed by them. To let them move through me instead of drowning in them or numbing them. This was healing. The raw, open wounds starting to form scar tissue. Still tender. Still there. But healing. Without the constant filter of social media, the real world came into focus. I started noticing things. Details in my environment I'd walked past for years. The way light moved. Birds singing. People's faces. Colors seemed brighter. Sounds clearer. Everything more vivid. Like I'd been living in a fog and it was finally lifting. I had conversations without thinking about how I'd describe them online. Experiences without considering how they'd photograph. Thoughts without crafting them for tweets. Life became three-dimensional again. Not flattened into content. Not filtered through a screen. Just real. Present. Immediate. This presence was both beautiful and uncomfortable. Beautiful because everything felt more alive. Uncomfortable because I couldn't escape into digital distraction when things got hard. But the trade was worth it. Presence for numbness. Reality for curated fiction. Life for the performance of life. The memories that had been flooding back started to lose their edge. I'd remember something painful, and instead of being consumed by it, I could observe it. Feel it. And let it go. I'd recall a regret, and instead of spiraling into shame, I could acknowledge it. Learn from it. Forgive myself. I'd think about lost time, and instead of drowning in grief, I could accept it. It was gone. But the future wasn't. This wasn't forced positivity or toxic optimism. The pain was real. The losses were real. But I was developing capacity to hold them without being destroyed by them. Social media had kept these memories at bay through distraction. Now I was actually processing them. Integrating them. Healing them. It was slow. Often painful. But I could feel the wounds closing. The weight lightening. The past becoming past instead of bleeding into present. Around week 6, I started building real connections. I called a friend instead of texting. We talked for an hour. Really talked. No interruptions. No scrolling while half listening. I met someone for coffee. Put my phone away. Was fully present. Listened deeply. Shared honestly. Connected in a way I hadn't in years. I reached out to family. Not with quick messages but real conversations. Vulnerable. Honest. Asking for connection, not just sending updates. These interactions were uncomfortable at first. I felt rusty. Awkward. Unsure how to connect without the buffer of screens. But they were also deeply satisfying. Nourishing in a way digital interaction never was. Because they were real. Mutual. Present. I was remembering how to be human with other humans. Not performing for an audience but genuinely connecting with individuals. This is what I'd been missing while thinking I was connected to thousands. Something unexpected happened around week 7. Creativity returned. I started having ideas. Real ideas. Not just reactions to other people's content but original thoughts. I started creating. Writing. Drawing. Making things. Not for posting but for the joy of creation itself. I started daydreaming. Letting my mind wander. Making connections between concepts. Thinking deeply about things. Social media had killed my creativity. Turned me into a consumer instead of creator. Made me reactive instead of proactive. Fed me constant input that crowded out original thought. Now, with space and silence and boredom, creativity had room to emerge. To breathe. To grow. I wasn't creating for validation. For likes. For the algorithm. I was creating because I needed to. Because I had something to express. Because making things felt good. This was healing too. Reclaiming my creative self. The part of me that generates instead of just consumes. By week 8, something remarkable happened. I stopped comparing myself to others. Or at least, it stopped hurting. I'd see someone's success and feel genuinely happy for them. Not envious. Not inadequate. Just happy. I'd hear about someone's achievement and not measure it against my own. Just appreciate it for what it was. I'd witness someone's life and not compare it to mine. Just observe it with curiosity and goodwill. Without constant exposure to everyone's highlight reels, I'd stopped measuring myself against impossible standards. Started measuring myself against my own progress. My own values. My own definition of success. I was becoming my own reference point. Building internal validation. Developing self-worth that didn't depend on how I stacked up against others. This freedom was intoxicating. Lighter than I'd felt in years. Like putting down a weight I didn't know I was carrying. Around week 10, I started being kind to myself. Really kind. For the first time in years. I stopped beating myself up for wasting time. Started appreciating that I'd recognized the problem and done something about it. I stopped shaming myself for the addiction. Started understanding it as a coping mechanism I developed for real pain. I stopped judging myself so harshly. Started treating myself with the gentleness I'd give a good friend. Social media had amplified my inner critic. Given it a megaphone. Made me compare my insides to everyone's outsides and find myself lacking. Without that constant reinforcement of inadequacy, self-compassion had space to grow. I could see myself clearly. Flawed but trying. Imperfect but worthy. Human. This self-compassion was revolutionary. It changed how I approached everything. How I handled mistakes. How I processed emotions. How I moved through the world. Healing wasn't just about feeling the pain. It was about being gentle with myself while I felt it. By week 12, life started feeling meaningful in a way it hadn't in years. Small moments mattered. A good conversation. A beautiful sunset. A moment of laughter. Things I used to rush past or document instead of experience. My work felt more purposeful. I could focus. Create quality. feel pride in what I produced. Not just go through motions while scrolling. My relationships felt richer, deeper, more real. Because I was showing up fully. Not divided between present and digital. My time felt valuable. I was intentional about how I spent it. Conscious of choices. Present for experiences. Social media had flattened everything into content. Made life into material to perform. Stripped meaning in favor of engagement. Without that flattening, life became textured again. Layered. Complex. Meaningful. I was living instead of documenting. Being instead of performing. Experiencing instead of curating. And it mattered. It all mattered. In a way that likes and comments and followers never did. Around month 4, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. Peace. Not the absence of problems. Not some enlightened state. Just simple peace. Peace in the morning without immediately checking notifications. Peace in uncertainty without crowdsourcing opinions. Peace in solitude without needing digital company. Peace with myself. My life. My choices. My pace. Social media had kept me in constant agitation. Always alert. Always anxious. Always chasing. Always performing. Always inadequate. Without that constant stimulation, my nervous system calmed. My mind quieted. My body relaxed. I could just be. Without doing. Without proving. Without performing. Just existing. Present. Quiet. Peaceful. This peace was the reward for all the pain. All the difficult emotions. All the healing work. This peace was worth it. With peace came gratitude. Deep, genuine gratitude. Grateful for my decision to quit. For having the courage to feel instead of numb. Grateful for the pain. Because it meant I was healing. Feeling is better than numbness even when it hurts. Grateful for the loneliness. Because it pushed me toward real connection. Grateful for the boredom. Because it made space for creativity. Grateful for the struggle. Because it made me stronger. Grateful for each day. Each experience. Each moment. Because I was actually present for them. Social media had kept me in a state of constant wanting. Always seeing what I didn't have. Always feeling inadequate. Never satisfied. Without that constant comparison, gratitude flourished. I could see what I had. Appreciate it. Feel genuinely lucky. This gratitude wasn't toxic positivity. It coexisted with grief and anger and pain. But it was there. Growing. Nourishing me. By month 5, my relationships transformed completely. I was present with people. Really present. Looking in their eyes. Listening fully. Responding thoughtfully. I was vulnerable. Sharing real struggles. Not just curated updates. Letting people see the real me. I was reliable. Following through. Showing up. Being someone people could count on. My friendships deepened. We had real conversations. Talked about meaningful things. Supported each other genuinely. My family relationships improved. I was engaged at gatherings. Participated in conversations. Created actual memories. These relationships became my sustenance. My connection. My community. Real and solid and nourishing in ways digital connection never was. I'd traded thousands of shallow connections for a handful of deep ones. Best trade I ever made. Around month 6, I knew who I was. Really knew. Not the performed version. The real one. With all my flaws and strengths and contradictions. I was someone who valued depth over breadth. Quality over quantity. Presence over performance. I was someone who felt deeply. Thought carefully. Created intentionally. Connected genuinely. I was someone who'd struggled with addiction and chosen healing. Who'd felt pain and kept going. Who'd lost time and still built a future. This identity wasn't about how many people knew me or followed me or validated me. It was about knowing myself. Being comfortable in my own skin. living aligned with my values. Social media had made my identity external, dependent on others' perceptions, performed for an audience. Now my identity was internal, solid, mine, and nobody else's opinion could shake it. Here's the truth: healing isn't a destination. It's ongoing. I still have hard days. Days when I miss the numbing. When feelings are too intense. When I want to escape. I still feel lonely sometimes. Still struggle with boredom. Still deal with anxiety and sadness and anger. The difference is I don't reach for social media to numb it. I feel it. Process it. Move through it. Some days that's easy. Some days it's excruciating. But I do it. Because numbing is worse than feeling. Always. The healing continues. Each day. Each emotion felt and processed. Each moment of presence chosen over distraction. It's not linear. Some days I heal. Some days I hurt. Some days I just exist. All of it is part of the process. So what does healing feel like when social media finally stops numbing you? It feels like being ripped open. Every nerve exposed. Every emotion amplified. Pain you didn't know you were carrying demanding to be felt. It feels like grief. For time lost. For versions of yourself you'll never be. For a life half-lived while scrolling. It feels like rage. At yourself. At the platforms. At years of wasted presence. It feels like loneliness. Deep and aching. Real connection absent. Digital connection revealed as hollow. It feels like fear. Of feelings. Of silence. Of yourself without distraction. But then, eventually, after sitting with all of that, after feeling all of it, after letting it wash over you and through you, it feels like peace. Like presence. Like coming home to yourself. It feels like clarity. Colors brighter. Sounds clearer. Life vivid and real. It feels like connection. Real connection. With others. With yourself. With life. It feels like creativity. Ideas flowing. Thoughts deepening. Creating instead of consuming. It feels like gratitude. For small things. For real moments. For being present. It feels like freedom. From comparison. From performance. From the constant need for validation. It feels like yourself. The real you. Not the curated version. The messy, imperfect, beautifully human real you. Healing hurts. Nobody warns you about that. They tell you it gets better. They don't tell you it gets worse first. That you have to feel everything you've been avoiding before you can heal it. But on the other side of that pain is life. Real life. Present and vivid and meaningful. And it's worth it. Every difficult moment. Every emotion felt. Every wave of pain. Worth it. Because numbing isn't living. And I'm finally living again.
If you made it through this whole video, thank you. Thank you for your presence. Your attention. Your willingness to hear my story. I know this was heavy. Healing isn't pretty. It's not inspirational quotes and easy fixes. It's raw and painful and real. And if you're in it right now, if you're feeling everything after years of numbing, if you're wondering when it gets better, I see you. I was you. I understand. Now I need something from you. If this video resonated, if you felt seen or understood, if something I shared connected with you, will you help me build something here? First, if it feels right, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but so other people can find this. So other people who are healing can know they're not alone. That what they're feeling is normal. That it's part of the process. But here's what matters most. Here's what would mean everything to me and everyone in this community. Leave a comment. A real one. From your heart. If you're healing right now, share what it feels like. The good, the bad, the ugly. Someone needs to hear that they're not alone in the pain. If you've been where I was, share what helped. What gave you hope? What kept you going when you wanted to numb again? If you're just starting, share your fear, your doubt, your hope. We'll hold it with you. Share encouragement for someone who's struggling. Tell them they can do this, that it's worth it, that they're not weak for finding it hard. Share forgiveness. For yourself. For the time you lost. For the numbing you did. We all did the best we could with what we had. You deserve compassion. Share what you're learning about healing. About feeling. About being present. Your insights might be exactly what someone else needs. Or just share love. Simple, honest, human love. Tell someone they matter. They're not alone. Their healing matters. Your words have power. Real power. The person reading your comment might be on the edge. Might be about to give up. Might be convinced they're the only one feeling this way. Your comment could be what keeps them going. What gives them permission to feel. What helps them understand that healing hurts, but it's worth it. So please, share. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be part of this community of people who are choosing to feel instead of numb. And if you're reading these comments right now, searching for hope, for validation, for a sign that you're not crazy, you're not alone. What you're feeling is healing. It's supposed to hurt. The pain means you're finally processing what you've been avoiding. Keep going. Feel the feelings. Sit with the discomfort. Let the emotions move through you. It gets better. Not easier, but better. Richer. More real. More worth it. You're healing. Even when it feels like you're breaking. Especially then. You're healing. We're healing. Together. One painful, beautiful, real moment at a time. I'll see you in the next video. And I'll see you in the comments. Stay present. Stay feeling. Stay healing. You've got this. We've got this. Together.